Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing Hall of Fame boxing writer and six-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. How's that sound, Jack? Pretty close?
Good. You nailed it, Mac.
Okay, thanks, Jack. So, good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show Friday edition. On the show today, we'll be having Byron Williams, Keith Engle, and our friend, the Philly sports guy. We'll be talking about, of course, all the news from last night. We'll be talking about the games, standings, some boxing with Jack, some MLB news. So we got a lot to get to. So, Jack, let's jump in and start with last night's game. Jacksonville Jaguars 19, the Jets 3. The Jets defense played great. Zach Wilson played awful. I don't know what else to say. He was even replaced by a quarterback in the third quarter who was just on a taxi squad. So, Jack, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Chris Stepler, the Jet defense didn't play great, Mac. Let's stop that there. Point-wise, giving up 19 points is fine. That's acceptable. That's okay. You give up 19 points to the opposition. You would think you put yourself in a good position to win. But the Jets did a very poor job stopping the Jaguar run, especially in the first half. Very poor job. I mean, they kept giving ground. I mean, they didn't break, but they bent throughout the night, okay? They just bent. And, with all the talk about the quarterback situation last night, how the quarterbacks did, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, for Giant fans, what maybe slipped under the radar, Evan Ingram, tight end, he really, really looked good. And he looked like the type of player that maybe you don't give up on, okay? He was with the Giants for a while, but he had a case of the drops. He had a hard time holding on to the football when he was with the Giants, and eventually the Giants moved on from Evan Ingram. He became a free agent. He took a chance signing a one-year deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars to see could he revive his career or get his career to a spot where he thought it should be, and he seems to be there. He seems to be a big part of the Jaguar offense. But the story is the Jets. I mean, and talking about the game yesterday, we mentioned the weather. We were talking about the cold, but it wasn't cold yesterday. There was rain, there was wind, it was miserable. But you want to know something, Mac? You have the same conditions for both teams.
Right.
If you have the same conditions for both teams, how can you really complain? And the Jets lose, but of course, there has to be a scapegoat, and fairly so. It was Zach Wilson yesterday, the quarterback. He performed very poorly. Mac, if I had to give him a grade, I hate to hand out Fs. I like to at least give a D, okay? Meaning a D means you don't graduate if you're in college, but you pass the course and you don't have to take it again, and you could continue on with the other courses and up your average and get your diploma, graduate and go out into the real world. But, Zach Wilson, he seems like a good kid on the surface. He performed dreadfully yesterday. Some of the throws had me throwing up my arms. Now, what was revealing, Mac, about the game yesterday, the Jets' first play from scrimmage, no one talks about it at all, Mac. I don't think anyone even remembers. The Jets faked an end around. It was a fake, and Zach Wilson ran up the middle. It was a designed play. It wasn't a broken play. It was designed. He got stuffed after a couple of yards. But just the idea that the Jets were willing to run their so-called franchise quarterback up the middle on a design running play, where you want to avoid contact because you want to avoid injuries, is revealing. It's as if they were saying, we're going to do what we can to give Zach the best chance of winning. And even if there's an injury risk, we're not thinking a long term. Then we'll go to our bench. That to me was kind of revealing.
Yeah. I mean, you made a good point with Evan Ingram. Boy, the Giants could use a big play guy right now at tight end. I don't know what to say about Zach Wilson that I haven't already said, Jack. Zach Wilson is not a starting quarterback. You think he is in certain situations. I don't. I think he's a good second string quarterback. He can come in and be a stopgate for a while. He's got a lot to learn. He's got a lot to learn about reading defenses, calling audibles. He's just not ready to start in the NFL right now, Jack. That's my thoughts on him.
Mac, I've changed my mind from a couple of games ago. I said he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. Be patient. But the Jet fans aren't going to have patience. And this isn't to say that they should. The Jets are 7-8 now. I predicted in the beginning of the year they'd finish with a 7-10 record. And even if they win a game, it's close enough to 7-10. So they're doing basically what's expected. I know they're on a 4-game losing streak, but this is a step forward for the Jets this season, even if they lose their last 2 games. And next year, they're a genuine playoff contender, and they'll have a good chance of securing a playoff slot next season because they're all going to be 1 year better. Their younger players are coming along. But as far as Zach Wilson goes, I can't see a future with the New York Jets. I hate saying this, Mac, because I really think he has the ability and the talent to be a good quarterback, but he needs to play a lot. He needs to get the kinks out. He needs to make the mistakes, learn from them. It is a long learning process. He needs a couple of seasons, okay, where he can make the mistakes and get better and learn from them. And he's not going to get him here in New York. He needs to be with a team like the Houston Texans are this year, constantly losing, having trouble in the quarterback position, but able to stick with a quarterback for a while because the fan base there is patient. They don't get on the quarterback as much as they would in New York. And Zach Wilson is basically worn out his welcome here. The only way he can win the fans over is if he gets in the next game, throws a touchdown pass immediately, plays a great game, he keeps the fans off him. What was interesting about yesterday's game, Mac, is the fans actually showed a degree of patience until around halftime.
Yeah.
There would be a tiny smattering of boos, but it wasn't much. It's as if they were trying to give him the chances. It was as if they listened to what the head coach, Robert Saleh, said in being a little critical of the fans, saying, look, you have to wait. You can't just feel a guy's here for a cup of coffee and get rid of him. Yeah. And the fans were shown patience, but some of those throws, Mac, I wasn't at the game, okay? I'm watching on TV. I'm not the type that boos. I'm really not. I only boo a guy if he doesn't hustle, if he misses mental assignments, things that he should know. Okay, but I'm not going to boo a guy if he drops a pass or usually just throws a bad pass. But some of those passes, they miss so badly. I'm like throwing my arms up. I'm not so much mad at Zach Wilson. I'm figuring, what the heck is going on here? How do you miss a receiver by so much?
Yeah.
Whose fault is this?
Yeah.
And it just was exasperating. And unlike the Lion game, where he did some good things and people recognized it, and they kind of tweaked Zach Wilson for that game, but didn't get on him all out. This game, there's no getting around it, especially when you see the comparison, how Trevor Lawrence has come along. But Trevor Lawrence, this is his second year, and now he's turning into the quarterback people thought he could be. He's not there yet, but he's getting there.
Yeah.
We see the progress, but keep in mind, Trevor Lawrence, for most of his rookie year, he wasn't too effective. Just picture this, Mac. Let me ask you this. If Trevor Lawrence had been drafted by the Jets, and he easily could have, where they went 1-2, and he played his first year for the Jets the way he did for the Jaguars, Do you think the fans would have been as patient as they were in Jacksonville? Would they have been saying, calling him a bust, get rid of him, getting on him? Or how would that have played out? I kind of wonder.
I don't know, of course, because it didn't happen. But I think Trevor Lawrence is a lot different than Zach Wilson. Trevor Lawrence looks like a good quarterback. He's got the ability to make plays happen. I mean, I think that Trevor Lawrence wouldn't have as bad a year as Zach Wilson did because of his legs, because of the way he throws the football. Of course, the Jets fans, and I just don't like New York fans to begin with, when they supposedly root for their teams and they're always all over them. But I don't think they would have been as hard on Trevor Lawrence as they are on Zach Wilson right now. I kind of feel sorry for the guy. I'm not mad at him. I kind of feel sorry for him. And as far as what you said of him going to another team, I mean, would the players really want that? They all want to win. They all want to look good. They all looking at their contracts. And would they want Zach Wilson to come down there and learn and make mistakes and lose games, Jack?
No, Mac. I'm talking about a team like the Houston Texans.
Yeah, even the Houston Jets.
And there are other teams. The Atlanta Falcons are struggling. What I'm saying is the fan bases would be more patient.
Yeah.
I think they would be more patient. And I think that's a part of Zach Wilson's problem right now. Let's say hypothetically, let's make believe the fans weren't booing Zach Wilson. They weren't blaming him. They were encouraging him. The Jets would be more likely to play him, keep playing him if everyone was being encouraging. But there's so much negativity surrounding Zach Wilson now. So much negativity. People just want to get on him. Already you see the reports today. They're saying, let's move on from Zach Wilson. A couple of weeks ago, I'd be saying, stop this talk already. And my thought was, worst case scenario, let him go to training camp next season with Mike White. And if you want to start Mike White, fine. Let Zach Wilson be the backup. And if Mike White struggles, then no one can be upset if Zach Wilson is coming in. Because he's coming in to replace someone else struggling rather than vice versa. But even now, I don't know is that the thing they're going to do. But the interesting thing as far as Zach Wilson goes, I can't see them just giving him away. Even though it might be tempting, just give him away for 7th round draft, but just release him to another team and say we're moving on. I mean, because the fear always is if he goes elsewhere and he flourishes, he develops, he puts it together. I mean, you talk about drafting a guy too high and he's a bust, not being able to live it down. You won't be able to live it down if he becomes an outstanding NFL quarterback. And it's easy to say, oh, no, he doesn't have what it takes. But you never know. He has it, but because he does have the physical ability. He does have a strong arm. He does have great legs. He can be dynamic on certain plays. It's just he's not your typical NFL quarterback. You're going to keep in the pocket, read defense as well. But rest assured, someone picks Zach Wilson up. No ifs or buts about it. Because when the guy's an overall number 2 draft choice, he's going to be in the league for years somewhere.
I'm trying to think of the quarterback's name that reminds me of the plight Zach Wilson's going through right now. He was drafted number 1 along I can't think of the guy's name.
DeMarcus Russell?
No, he threw a lot of interceptions. He's thrown 30 interceptions, Jack. 30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns.
Jameis Winston.
Right. They went about the same place, and they had the same problem. He throws interceptions. Zach Wilson throws interceptions. Could be really good, may not be so good. I think it's a fair comparison to him, just because of where he was drafted and the same problems they're going through, Jeff.
It's not an unfair comparison, let me put it that way, but it's a little different. Zach Wilson only threw 1 interception yesterday. And that was at the end of the first half. Right. He had to heave the ball up. He had nothing to lose throwing it down the field. So that to me isn't a true interception, true bad job.
Right.
But then again, what about the balls that could have been intercepted and weren't? So they kind of evened out. Jameis Winston was different. He was very effective moving the ball up and down the field, but he was a pick six machine.
Yeah, he was.
That was a problem. I remember going to a game. My buddy's a season ticket holder in Tampa, and I was there, and I go to see them the year before the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. They're 7-7, the Buccaneers. They're playing the Houston Texans. Jameis Winston is the quarterback. He starts the game with a pick six, and he ends the game with a pick six. And I'm going like that. In between, he's looking good.
Right.
But you thought the pick six it absolutely is a killer, an absolute killer. And but he went to New Orleans. He backed up Drew Brees, and he supposedly was going to start, got injured. And when he got healthy again, they're playing him behind Andy Dalton there. So, but at least he had a shot, and he had a number of years where he was the starting quarterback at Tampa Bay. And they didn't really boo him out of town. But it got to the point after years of being a starter, it wasn't going to work, especially when Tom Brady became available. That made it easy to move on from Jameis Winston.
So let's talk about the Jets for a minute right now. They're 7-9.
7-8.
7-8. Well, they'll be 7-9 next week.
Right, play Seattle and Miami.
Yeah. That's going to be tough, dude. That's going to be tough.
Season got away from the Jets, Mac.
Yeah.
7-8. If they want to have a winning record, you got to win at Seattle, and then you got to win at Miami. I think the Seattle game's at Seattle, if I'm not mistaken.
That's going to be a tough one.
7-8
right now, Jack. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs now or not. It looked like they were going to at least make it as a wild card. Still got a chance. In fact, 3/4 of the teams still have a chance. Last place now, Jeff. Jack,
they're not making it as a wild card, Mac. Forget about it.
I think so too.
Finished.
I think they're all done. I hate to say it, I really do, because I was really rooting for them. You're really a great story. I like the Jets. I like them.
Mac. The season got away from him. The Jets were 7-4, and they looked really going well. They played. Then they were playing at Buffalo. They were playing in Minnesota. I mean, we knew there was a good chance they'd lose that game. Then they're playing at Buffalo. We knew there's a good chance they were going to lose that game and be 7-6. But you thought they'd rebound at home against the Lions and the Jaguars, and to lose those games at home. Jets are lacking. And Mac, I'm sorry to cut in. Something else was revealing about yesterday's game. During the game, the Jaguars sideline, they were excited. They were like college kids. It was big, like, oh, we've been winning lately. We love the feeling of winning. We could actually make the playoffs. And they were all excited. And the Jets sideline, it was like a job, okay? Yeah. It was like the Jaguars sideline, it was like a joy what they were doing playing football. And for the Jets, it was a job playing football. That was the difference in attitude.
Yeah. I mean, the Jags just look like they're having fun right now. They're playing loose.
That's it.
Yeah. So just to let you know, Jack, the Pats at 7-7 are only one game behind the Miami Dolphins.
The Pats have their own problems. I mean, the way they lost yesterday, and I'm just taking a quick look at the schedule here. The Pats at home, but they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals this week. And the Bengals are playing for a lot. They're playing for the division lead. And the Bengals are also playing, for possible home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They still have a shot at that. It's going to be a tough game for New England at home, especially with the way Cincinnati's been playing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think Cincinnati is probably the hottest team in football right now. I don't think they're the best, but they seem to be the hottest. They've beaten Kansas City 3 times, and Kansas City to me is still the class.
Well, once this year they beat them in the playoffs last year.
Right.
AFC championship game in the regular season.
Right. So 3 times, 3 times in a calendar year, you would say, I guess. They beat them.
No, I mean, I don't remember whether they played them in the regular season last year.
They played them this year in the regular
Oh,
season.
yeah, so that's two. Then one,
Yeah.
Mac, 1 + 1 = 2.
Jack, I'm saying,
once in the
if
playoffs.
you include the
They played them
championship.
once this year. They played them once. They're not in the same division, Mac.
Okay.
Did they play them last year in the regular season? If they didn't, they beat them. That makes 3.
Maybe they did. You got me confused.
You remind me of an Abbott Costello kid. One guy's holding up the bananas to Abbott, and he's saying 1 banana, 2 bananas, 1 banana, and 2 bananas makes 3 bananas. And he's trying to charge Costello for 3 bananas, and he's only giving him 2.
Right.
1 banana, 2 banana.
Okay. Okay. So, talk a little bit about, of course, we've talked about it. Everybody's been talking about that, but Franco Harris passing away, great person, maybe a better person than a player, and he was one heck of a player. He's the one that carried the ball for the Steelers for the most part through all those Super Bowls. And that time, the offenses were running the ball more than passing, and they did have a couple Hall of Fame wide receivers out there too, in Swan and Stallworth. But, I would say, Jack, would you disagree that the Immaculate Reception may be the greatest play in the history of the NFL?
It is. It's the most exciting, most dynamic play. You play it over and over again. And you notice when the ball got deflected backwards, 3 of the Raider players, they kind of slowed up. They didn't react because they saw the ball deflect the other way. So instinctively, they stopped. Had they reacted immediately and gotten in positions to cut Harris off, it would have been, maybe they would have gotten him. I was thinking a few seconds ago, Mac, when you mentioned Franco Harris, those Steeler teams, of all the players on those Steeler teams, and you had big personalities, how you got doing, Byron, Terry Bradshaw, Mean Joe Green, Lynn Swan, and on and on. Franco Harris was maybe the biggest single name on that team who we identify most with those Steeler teams. Maybe him, Mean Joe Green, you could make an argument. But maybe Franco gets the edge because of the afro. He had that distinct look more than anyone else on that team. And soft-spoken but those Steeler teams, the more you think of those names on those teams, maybe they're the most overrated group in NFL history. With the 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. And the years they weren't winning the Super Bowls, they were always in the mix.
You meant underrated, not overrated, right, Jeff?
Underrated. I'm sorry. Underrated.
That's right. Byron came in perfect timing with talking about Franco Harris because he knew him personally, from what I understand. 72 years old, Byron. You were around him quite a bit. Tell us a little bit about Franco Harris.
Yeah, I go to his event almost every year at the Super Bowl. He have the Immaculate Reception dinner. I probably went to 15, 16 of them. I was going this year in Phoenix. This Super Bowl, I already RSVP for it. I only got a chance to meet almost every Steeler that played with Franco Harris. Those guys are great friends. I have pictures of Mean Joe Green, Rocket Blair, all those guys. It was just a pleasure to meet him and to know him. I looked up to him. He was a mentor of mine. I have texted his family this week and gave him my condolences and stuff. And it's just been devastating for the family. They were going to retire his jersey this weekend at this game against the Raiders. And it was the 50th year of that Immaculate Reception. So, I talked to him throughout. Last year I didn't make it to the Super Bowl, and they sent me the Super Bowl package. I had the Super Bowl hat and stuff from Franco event. So he was a real dear friend of mine. He was always a class guy. He had time to meet with everybody. He'll take a picture with everybody. Just one of the greatest guys you ever want to meet. Not only, his whole family. So every year they raise money to get back into the community. I know he had a bakery company, office up in Fitchburg. So he's his presence in and off the football field, on and off the football field, was greatly mastered like no other player. Ain't too many players have done what he was doing. And I can just continue to talk about all the great things he have done because he meant a lot to me. I mean, every year I would do his event. When they had the Super Bowl in Detroit, I went to his event. The Super Bowl out there in Arizona last time I went to his event. Miami, I went to his event. So just great memories, and I'm so glad I got pictures, and I've had a lot of people call me, concerning about his, what happened a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
Guys, very few players in NFL history are predominantly remembered for one particular play. David Tyree, the helmet catch. Who would have remembered David Tyree if it wasn't for that? But that made him famous. Jerry Kramer, great guard, lifting Jeff Pugh up on the quarterback sneak by Bart Starr. And a few others. They have that one particular signature play that people think about more than they do the player's career. And with Franco Harris, they're going to think of the Immaculate Reception more so than his career. And you kind of wonder how fair that is, because this is one of the great running backs of all time in NFL history. But I'm sure Franco embraced the Immaculate Reception because the people in Pittsburgh loved it. The ironic thing is they lost their next game. They didn't advance to the Super Bowl. So what it meant to the Steeler organization per se maybe wasn't a great deal because it didn't quite get them to the Super Bowl. They lost to the unbeaten Miami Dolphins in the AFC Championship game next. But the one play was so spectacular. It was a type of play that you could watch over and over again on the replay, analyze it back and forth. And they have a statue for Franco there in Pittsburgh, which is kind of nice to commemorate the play.
Yeah, and it brings back so many memories because they started winning games and people was attached to him and Terry Bradshaw and the whole crew, and it just made a difference. It really it changed the game. I mean, it was a pioneer play, like you said. It was something that people remember forever, and I'm just happy that I got a chance to meet him personally and know him personally for years and years. In fact, when my daddy passed away in 2005, I was in Jacksonville at that Super Bowl, and one of my sisters called me and told me my dad had just passed away. I was on the second tee box in this golf tournament, and in 2005. So just to be attached to Franco and what he means and what he meant to so many people, it's gonna be a sad weekend this weekend in Pittsburgh. But I just remember the greatness that he brought to the game. And the way he treated his fellow man, he loved everybody, treated his everybody he met with class, and his wife and everybody's kids, everybody just some awesome individuals. So you're exactly right, Jack.
Yeah. Well, on a reverse note here, pretty much everybody knows this too. They've been following this story with Willie McGinnis, who was charged with assault with a deadly weapon. And Byron, this kind of crazy stuff normally happens to young players, right? They get in trouble doing crazy stuff. Willie McGinnis is an older guy. He had a great career with the Patriots, went to a few Super Bowls. He a great defensive end, and even I think he was an NFL analyst for a while. So this is a grown man, mature guy, and he loses his cool during it looks like a fight with a bunch of people, not just him and one guy. There's quite a few people there, and what would drive a player to do that, Byron?
Yeah, it was in L.A., and I think he was at a nightclub or something, and him and some other guys had went out, and some guy hit him, attacked him, and of course they arrested him. He turned himself in the next day, and we released on a $30,000 bond. But unfortunately, you can't put yourself in that situation because you're a target. You know, a lot of people are jealous. Some people just like, you know, want to challenge football players.
Sure.
And, you know, you just got to keep your cool. You just, first of all, can't put yourself in that situation. And it was a fight broke out in this club, a nightclub or whatever. But, you know, being a celebrity and being on TV all the time, people are going to target you, and you ought to know that. You know, he's a well-vested older player to know the ins and outs of what society is all about now. You know, these people try to do things to you know, have a lawsuit against them and all that type of stuff. So, you know, he's going to be I know he worked for the NFL Network. He's been working for the NFL Network and doing other things for years, and had a good career after football in the broadcasting business, and now that's going to be tarnished. And you know, it's a shame that he put himself in that situation.
Agree 100% with that. We got a guy that Jack didn't think we should have drafted, you know, where we did. You know, he's going to be an average player. He'll be okay. You know, he'll be a how did you put it? He'll be a player that, you know, will have a decent career. Well, he goes out and has a huge game, has 2 sacks, a fumble recovery in the end zone for a touchdown, pressures the quarterback, plays out of his mind. And, of course, you know I'm talking about Thibodeau, Byron. So that's the story on him, and the story on Jack. What do you think, Byron?
Well, you know, I've been calling it perfectly. I text you. In fact, I text you before the game between the Giants and the Washington Commandos, and I also texted you and told you that Thibodeau gonna have a breakout game. And the first 2 or 3 series of the game, he was a force to be reckoned with. And of course, he scored that touchdown. So I was texting Matt and letting him know that, hey, our point is right on and the prediction right on. So, you know, we kind of sometimes have a little bit of insights on football players. So hopefully Jack is taking notes on learning the game a little bit more in depth and understanding that sometimes it takes college players a little bit longer to make that transition. And now we figured about the 12th, 14th game of the season that he should be making his fourth.
Guy, first off, I'm going to give him his due. Thibodeau was sensational, okay? He was sensational for this one particular game. I don't want to hear he needs time to develop. Aiden Hutchinson came ready to play ball from the get-go. He's been excellent every game for the Lions. Thibodeau shows up because it's prime time Sunday night. That's what he is. He's a prime time player. Give him a 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon game out of the spotlight of the national audience, and he's so. That's about it. I mean, I'm telling you, he's going to be good on a big stage, but very few games are on a big stage. Okay, Sunday Night Football, that's all he was talking about. He said he was talking about with his mother about Sunday Night Football. She urged him to show his best, you know. Kudos to him for listening to his mom for this game. But I don't want to hear that. Listen, he hasn't had a bad year to this point. He just hasn't been a true force. He showed what he could do against Washington, and that makes it even worse because we see how good he could be. You know what his ceiling is, his absolute ceiling? The best he's going to be for his career, maybe another Clowney, okay? That's about it. Clowney's had games like that. But look what he's done. But look how inconsistent he's been.
Well, one of the things he got to do is continue to get mentored by Michael Strahan and those guys. And I think when he do that, he understanding that his responsibilities. I think he's getting that. Sometimes it takes a little while for certain players to make that transition. And that one big word is that big C, capital C, is confidence. And now I think he got the confidence, and now he know what he must do to prepare himself. And I think the Giants made a good draft choice and picking him the fifth pick.
No, Byron, the one word is
Jack.
Attitude. That's what he needs.
Jack, you just said that he plays great when the game is big. Well, isn't that what you want? Isn't that what Joe?
The very few. I'm talking about prime time. was prime time Sunday night. That was
Wouldn't the Super Bowl be prime time?
But
This
they're not gonna get to the
wasn't
Super
Joe
Bowl.
Namath, not this year. Wasn't Joe Namath that way? Didn't he play great when the game was the biggest? I mean, during the year, he'd throw interceptions. He'd play okay. But when it was the Super Bowl, and he didn't play that great in the Super Bowl, but he did predict that the Jets were going to win. So he was up. Yeah, he was up for that game. And where did he go? He went to the media. He did.
Let me tell you something. If he was playing in the old Giant teams, guys like Harry Carson, Leonard Marshall, LT would meet amongst themselves and say, "Who's going to talk to this kid? Someone better take him under our wing to straighten."
But you know what? That's good. I'm glad you said that because I was with those guys, and that was one of the things that those guys did do. You know, Gary Reeves and all those guys was on the same page, and they were like brothers, big brothers to each other. But what I want to say to you too, Jack, you're a part of a fan group of people, the Jets. I'm going to talk about the Jets a little bit. I can't understand why the Jets was booing Zach Wilson last night. And for me, it's just like you working at your job and somebody coming in and booing you and downgrading you. And I think what people got to understand, Zach is still a young player. Don't just beat him down in the bush and throw him in the trash can. I don't believe that. I just think that you have to continue to build these players up. We're going to make mistakes. You're going to throw interceptions. But I don't understand why the Jets fans started booing him in the middle of the game when it was 3-3, 3-10, or whatever the score was. And I just can't believe that, that it don't make sense for me to be a professional football player. These people who pay that, come to the game to be a fan of the game and probably be a fan of the Jets to do him that way. I mean, to me, I was just shaking my head last night.
I agree with you 100%, but there were points in the game, Byron. I'm watching on TV and I'm throwing my hands up. I'm not the type that would boo. If I was in the stands, I wouldn't boo Zach Wilson. Mm-hmm. But I would go like this, like some of those throws were like, where they going to? And either it's the receiver, the quarterback, or there's a breakdown with the offensive coordinator, but something wasn't functioning. And I do think it has an effect on the coaching staff, how the fans and media react. I really do, because under normal circumstances, had the fans been supportive and had the media not made a big deal about Zach Wilson, maybe Robert Saleh sticks with him longer. But, I just don't see him surviving here in New York. I didn't feel this way a couple of weeks ago. I feel he has talent. He has the potential to be a decent NFL quarterback. I don't know will he ever get there or not. But he's got to play for a team like the Houston Texans, who lose a lot this year, but the fan base doesn't get on the quarterbacks quite as bad. I think he needs that type of scenario, or go somewhere as a backup and then get his chance later on, like what's going on at New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina. Look, Sam Darnold, they were losing patience with him, and now at least for the time being, he's the start at Carolina. Geno Smith, you do get other chances, but like Byron, what I was telling Mac, the Jets have a predicament, because if he goes elsewhere and he develops into a top quarterback, they never live that down. Yeah. I don't want to hear about the pressures of playing in New York, because I don't think that has anything to do with how Zach Wilson is performing, pressure playing in New York. I feel he just needs a lot of games to learn, and the Jet fan base and organization isn't in a position to give him a lot of games to learn.
Yeah, and that's one thing. You got to be almost ready to play when you go to New York. Okay, on the Giants side or the Jets side. It's just and then you got to be able to know how to deal with the media, and you got to be a confident player. I mean, and I'm a Zach Wilson fan. I think he bring a lot to the game. I just think right now he's still immature and they're not confident enough, to play the game the way he needs to be playing. But they need to put him to the side. I think the coaching staff need to be more mature-minded and make sure they have patience with him. And then the play calling. Some of the play calling is not sufficient to help him. You have to use your running back, use your personnel, use your tight end a little bit more. And I think, to me, I think they're not giving him that opportunity. I mean, some of the throws, it was raining and the game situation wasn't that top. But I just think that Zach Wilson needs to be a little bit more patient with the game, and I think they rushed him, and now his confidence is down to the lower end of the bottom of the barrel.
I don't know. Is it his individual confidence, how bad it might be? I'm not sure, what's going on in his head, but I know the fan base, and you get the sense the coaching staff, they don't have any confidence in him at this point, and that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Good morning,
exactly.
Bags. How you doing? Everybody, a Philly sports guy in with Jack and Byron Williams, NFL expert on the Mac and Jack Sports Show. So Byron, I want to stick with the Giants a little bit more here. Of course, the best team in the NFC East. They're playing Minnesota tomorrow. And if they win that game, and if Carolina and Seattle lose, which is very possible because they got some two tough opponents. I think KC is one of them, and the other team I'm trying to see here real quick.
Detroit. It's Detroit that's got to lose.
Detroit
Or Washington.
Correct.
Or Washington. All three of those teams, two of those three teams got to lose, and the Giants win, and they're in the playoffs.
Right. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on the game tonight? I think Minnesota is a real good team, but I think they have problems in their defense, which we can take advantage of. I think we can get some pressure on Wilson because of the offensive line isn't that good. And I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a big part of the game, Byron.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think right now it's all about clicking at the right time, especially during the end of the season like this. And right now the Giants seem to be, what really was impressive, the way they stayed in the game. They controlled, and then they controlled that last series with Saquon making those first downs and controlling the game, not giving Washington another opportunity to score. And that's what it's all about. I mean, being able to put points on the board and having a good rush and offensive, production. And I think right now, Minnesota has been so inconsistent on what they offer. And I just think that we are in a good position. I think right now we got momentum going into the Giants got momentum going into this game. And Minnesota is not a dominant team. So it's good that we can go in and be in a position to win the next game.
Byron, let me ask you a question. You do a podcast with Jim Jeffcoat. Why does Jim Jeffcoat hate Kirk Cousins so much?
I just think I don't know why he hates him so much. I just think that, coming from Washington and the way he went to the Minnesota Vikings, even Washington, I think that's something that Jim probably is concerned about. But for some reason, he said that he don't play in a big game. And I guess that was something that maybe that's what Jim is talking about all the time. But to me, Kurt Carlson did a great job just making the transition from what he's doing and how he's performing this year. I think he's having an awesome year.
He's a coach killer.
He's a
coach killer.
Yeah, that's what Jim say. He can't play in the big game, so maybe that's what Jim's seeing him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game, and I think the Giants will probably edge them out in the end. Let's talk a little bit about that crazy play, guys. I'll have Keith, view on this when he comes on. What in God's name were the Patriots doing the last play against Chicago? Was it Chicago or the Raiders? I'm trying to remember. Huh?
Raiders.
Yeah, it's the Raiders. And, Belichick was talking about that play, and they practiced those types of case scenarios, and he said that he didn't know what that player was thinking about, just trying to get the ball back. It wasn't like they was tired. The game was tired, so go into overtime.
Right. Undisciplined, very undisciplined team, which really is the trademark of the Patriots of the past, right, Pags?
Well, I mean, First off, I mean, that was just complete ridiculousness. Why? First off, he ran backwards 15 yards and then tried to throw the ball back to the quarterback.
Right.
First off, why go back to the quarterback? There ain't nobody behind him. So now all of a sudden he can't throw it back downfield again. Secondly, it's like, all right, I don't understand anything about the entire play whatsoever. Like, you're supposed to, all right, he threw it back to him. You're supposed to lateral it across the field in any which way. Don't throw it back to the quarterback. Don't throw it back another 15 yards after you ran backwards 15 yards. It just it's kind of just indicative of the NFL this year. I think the NFL in most years puts out a pretty good product. This year, I think the product stinks. I think just across the board that the NFL is just poor play. And it started out with that Minnesota game against Indianapolis. You know what I mean? I want to talk about a complete wacky weekend in total.
Yeah.
But I want to say this too. I want to say too, and some of these referees calls this year have been really bad too. So I mean, it's a consistency that we got to make sure that these people are qualified to be out there. And then I think some of the coaches change. I mean, they're consistent with making sure that these players are educated on knowing what to do and not give up games like that. It's just crazy mistakes. You don't see that often. You don't see that.
The NFL has changed so much from refereeing to not hitting in the beginning of the year and camp. So they're not ready to play when the season starts. So Bags, maybe you're right. I disagree with you in the past, but maybe you're right. Maybe this product just isn't as good as it used to be when the teams seem to have their stuff together. The refs are calling the plays right, are calling penalties more consistently, than they are now. So maybe you're right, Bags. I disagree with you, this year sometimes, but yeah, that product out there right now is not as good as it was. That's for sure.
Well, and to touch on the refereeing, it's of course it's really hard to determine, where one play determines the outcome of the game, and maybe one play could start to swing the tide a little bit and stuff like that. I feel that the NFL should really start to consider in this offseason voting in the egregious non-call review. If there's a call that's so egregiously missed that they should be able to review it. I'm going back, and I think back to the play that knocked out Dallas Goedert, and he's going to be coming back this week, where it was a face mask that he wound up fumbling on. They never called the fumble. They never called the face mask. And it was when they reviewed it, they saw the face mask, but because they didn't call it the first time, they couldn't call it the second time.
Right.
And it was such a bad call, a missed call, wound up losing a player for 5 games now. I mean, he's going to be coming back this week. And then who does he come back to? We come back against Dallas and the same refereeing crew.
Wow.
That's
a great segue. Great segue, because that's what I want to talk to you next about. Of course, the Philadelphia Eagles against the Cowboys. Definitely Hurts is not starting now. There was up in the air in the beginning of the week. Minshew is starting, my favorite quarterback, on the Eagles. He's starting against Dallas. So, I mean, the game plan is going to change, I would imagine, a little bit. Minshew doesn't run as well as Hurts does. He's going to be handing the ball off a lot to Sanders and that. Try not to make mistakes. Do you think that's good enough to beat Dallas, Bags?
I've thought that this game is going to have to be won by the defense if the Eagles are going to win it. The Eagles' defense is going to have to step up in a bigger way. They're going to have to give them a shorter field. They're going to have to be able to get off the field on third down, and they can't let Dallas control the clock. So if there's going to be more 3 and outs on our side, which is what you kind of expect when you go to a backup quarterback, that's you're trying to anticipate drives, and some drives are just going to sputter right out of the gate. So you have to elongate them. You have to elongate them.
What's going on with Dak Prescott? I mean, at the beginning of the year he looked good, and now he's throwing interceptions. he doesn't seem to be playing his best at the, when they need him to play his best at the end of the year. I was saying anyway, the Giants are just one game really. If Dallas loses and the Giants win, they're only one game behind Dallas, or a game and a half because of the tie. Giants
You know
could.
what? On reflection, losing in overtime to the Jaguars doesn't look so bad after last night. Seeing the way the Jaguars are coming on. At the time, it looked like a gimme for Dallas on the schedule. And then they had a close call beating the Houston Texans the week before that. But the Kansas City Chiefs, 1 week after the Dallas game, they play the same Texans, and they win in overtime. So I think Dallas will be all right. But I'll tell you, this in a way is a statement game for Dallas. They kind of want to show that they can maybe beat Philadelphia in the playoffs. And if Dallas gets blown out this game at Dallas, it's going to look pretty bad. I would think the Cowboys are going to be a little more up for this game than the Eagles. So I think it means a little more to them than it does to Philadelphia.
Maybe
doesn't mean that they're going to win, but I just think the motivation is going to be there just a little bit more.
Byron,
I was going to say the good thing about the NFC East, competition, those games are always being played hard, and it's just so important to the team and to the morale of the team that you got to try to win those games, and so it's a very important game.
Byron,
also, Dak Prescott, I didn't answer your question. He really is one receiver short.
I was just going to bring up the wide receiver.
CeeDee Lamb is your main receiver, and he has a case of the drops at times. They're just one quality receiver short. They got built in, but we'll see how he works out.
I think that not only is the Eagles' running game going to be something, but I think Minshew is going to have to make a couple big plays, Byron, right? Because they're going to start coming up and playing the run in the box and trying to stop the Eagles from running the ball. And he's got two great receivers to throw it to. So if he can make a couple big plays there, the Eagles should win this game, Byron.
Yeah, I think the Eagles should win it too. I think Dallas is just they all just a showcase type team. They love the media and they love publicity, and I just think they not really that good at home. No way. I mean, they play better. They play a better game when on the road. For some reason, that Houston team came down there and played a couple of weeks ago. You can just tell that Dallas is not a focused team when they play here in Dallas.
Right. And Pack said the defense on the Eagles will probably be the one that wins the game. And I agree with him. I think that they should stop the run, and they should put a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott, Pags. And that, as you said, before, should be the determined factor of the game.
I agree. I think that if Dallas is going to get beat, like I said, I obviously not having Hurts is a big deal. I think that actually not having Hurts is going to show exactly why he may be the MVP, this season, missing out on a couple of games, but because you'll see how this offense will work without him, may show why that it's system. I mean, this is kind of exactly what is going to, you're either going to prove Micah Parsons right or prove him wrong, and either way, it's, if you prove them right, that means we beat them. Yeah. And we have the first seed. If we prove them wrong, he just comes back next week and we win, and it doesn't matter. So,
right.
Well, one of the things I'm going to always say this, I don't believe in going in and not playing your best. And I think you got to win games you need to win. And just give you morale, momentum going into the playoffs. And so you want to be consistent with your play. And I think a lot of teams set players out at the end of the season when they know they're going to the playoffs and blah, blah. I don't believe in that. I believe in the old Bill Parcells theory of you play your best football all the time, even with your backups.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So let's talk a little bit, about the game last night. Me and Jack covered it a little bit before you guys came on, but I want to get your opinions on it. I mean, Mac Jones and Byron touched on it too, Pags. Mac Jones just isn't the answer in New York right now. I mean, I don't know if he'll ever be the answer. I don't know. Zach Wilson. And I don't think Zach Wilson will be a starter next year. That's just my opinion. I think he's a second stringer that might be really good in a stopgap quarterback. And I mean, he's not the only reason why the Jets are losing, but he's a big reason why the Jets are losing right now. So, what are your thoughts on the Jets and Zach Wilson right now, Pags?
I feel like that. You know, the Jets got to be bigger boys at play for whoever's quarterbacking the team. And if you're going to get yourself up more for one player rather than the other, then that's more indicative of you as a player, not on the player itself. And that's how I kind of feel. I kind of feel like the Jets were just ho hum. We don't feel like doing this. It's just like they weren't there in the game. And Dougie P is playing for a playoff spot right now. I mean, he's going after it because he thinks that they can catch the Titans. And I feel that the Jets came up really small, and I don't think it had it wasn't everything to do with Zach Wilson. But I think Zach Wilson, you're right. I think he's going to not be on the Jets next year. I don't think he's going to. I think he needs a whole new resurgence. Because of everything that happened in New York, he's got to go somewhere and figure it out again. So he's going to probably have to take a backup role next year and work his way back into a lineup and try to do and try to be the first round talent that he got drafted as.
Pags, you make a great point about the players. About 3 weeks ago, they were wearing T-shirts supporting Mike White. That's indirectly a slap in the face at Zach Wilson. That's their teammate, Zach Wilson. I mean, how do you do that to a teammate? I mean, it's hurtful. People do things and they don't realize it. Even to the great Peyton Manning, his last year with the Colts, he was out for the season. He was injured. And when it appeared that the Colts were going to draft number 1, fans in the stands are wearing Andrew Luck jerseys. In the stands. If I'm Peyton Manning, you want to know something? I say, screw these fans here. I'm not coming back here. Don't build a statue for me. I don't want to know from you, I mean, that I would be hurt if I were Peyton Manning and I saw something like that, especially – and you're talking about Peyton Manning, what he did for the Colts. This isn't the Zach Wilson case with all Peyton Manning accomplished. How could the fans do that? But when your own teammates do it, that hurts
exactly.
a lot.
And you're talking about the Colts. I mean, they left the whole city. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you don't talk about loyalty. I mean, the Colts are not the team that you should talk about at all.
Indianapolis. Oh, no, the Indianapolis.
Oh, I understand what you're talking about, but I'm talking about when you're talking about loyalty. You're talking about a team called the Colts who left the city, so they ain't very loyal across the board.
They left the city in the middle of the night.
Exactly. So that you can't ever put loyalty and the Colts.
If the Philadelphia Eagles were willing to move to Connecticut, Mac would do everything he could to speed it up. He wouldn't mention the sellout crowds, the loyal Philly fan base. He'd do everything to talk the Eagles into coming to Connecticut.
I don't want the Phillies in Connecticut, Jack. I really don't. I mean, listen. The Eagles. I do respect the team. I do like the way they play. I always have. I don't hate the Eagles by any means. But if any team was coming to Connecticut, it'd be the Giants that I would want to see.
Pags, in the beginning of the season, Mac said the Giants are not going to win the division. They're going to get into the playoffs as a wild card and win the Super Bowl. And they're on track for what Mac said. Are you concerned at all about Mac's prediction? Because Mac is on track right now.
Yeah. And listen, I'd love to see the entire NFC East in the playoffs. I think that if there was going to be a division that does this in this new era of football with the playoffs, the first division to do it should be the NFC East, the one that owns the most Super Bowls, the best division in football for really forever. Even when we were the worst division in football, we still almost beat the eventual world champions. You know what I mean? So I think that. I don't care that the Giants make it in the playoffs because the Giants just don't have enough. They do not have enough. And the only team that's going to beat the Eagles is the Eagles. As long as the Eagles remain focused, they will not lose any game. And that's including the Super Bowl. But they have to play these games, and they have to be focused. Beyond that, I don't care what happens behind me. I hope that all of the NFC East teams make it, because I want to be able to pump my chest out and say that we are the best division in football again. And until one other division gets all 4 teams in the playoffs, you all are still looking up our skirts.
Well, Pags, you respect Joe Douglas, the Jet GM. You've spoken
I do.
about him. Let's say Joe Douglas has to take a leave of absence for a week, and he says, Pags, you're in charge. You can make any trade you want. I'm good with it. I have confidence in you. Your phone rings. It's the Washington Commanders. They want to trade Carson Wentz to the Jets for Zach Wilson. They call you up. Do you make the deal?
I'd have to consider that, actually. I would have to consider it. I think that Wentz is damaged goods now. But so is Zach, and I would have to consider that trade. I mean, if it's a 1-for-1, because there you're giving you're giving another opportunity to Wentz, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But you are getting rid of what could potentially be a cancer in your locker room moving forward. So I would have to really consider that as a trade.
Well, first of all, the Giants are going to the playoffs as a wild card. They may play the Dallas Cowboys. There's a possibility that they'll be matched against the Cowboys, and we'll beat the Cowboys, and that'll put us in a championship game against you all, which anything can happen, Pags, in the game of football, as you know, bounce of the ball. So we still have an outside chance of making that Super Bowl, right, Byron?
Let me tell you, too, it's
Absolutely.
working against Pags is this and the Eagles. They beat the Giants pretty handily at the Meadowlands. So now the Giants come to Philadelphia. Chances are the Eagles are complacent. They feel we handle these guys easy in their stadium. No problem here. And they meet a whole new Giant team, a focused Giant team. Even Thibodeau might show up again for the big game. Okay? He didn't show up against the Eagles when Thibodeau before, from what I gathered. They totally shut him down. He was intimidated against the Eagles. Big shot against Heineke and the Commanders. Yeah, he's prime time. But if he's playing against the Eagles with a chance to go to the Super Bowl, I think Thibodeau could maybe have a big game.
He'd be the defensive player of the game.
Maybe. And in that type of spot, maybe Thibodeau has a phenomenal game. I'll give him that. He has the ability to turn on the faucet for a game like that.
Yeah,
It's good to have hopes and dreams.
But what I like about the NFC East, you get a chance to play the team twice, and it's something about playing a team twice in the same year, and that's what's good about the NFC East, because you got to throw out those other games that they played, and the good thing about it, these teams know each other's up and down real well, so it's sometimes it's just hard to predict those games, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if we're in the divisional round of the playoffs and all 4 NFC East teams are representing the NFC?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would distinctly have a possibility. The Eagles with the number one seed. I mean, you would have right now it would be the Washington Commanders going up against their old quarterback cousins. And I think that the Commanders, if anything, actually match up well with defense offense of there. Jefferson's going to get his, but as long as you pressure Cousins, I think he'll make mistakes. So you could have that win there. Then you'd have Dallas against Tampa. I think that Dallas has got enough to beat Tampa because Tampa stinks. That's even if they make the playoffs. It could be Atlanta. It could be the Saints, which I still think the Saints are going to be the one that's going to represent, and Tampa's going to fall, and then Brady's not going to make the playoffs this year. So I think just because of the draft pick, the Saints are going to wind up winning that division, and we're going to go from like the 6th pick in the draft to the 16th pick. And then you'd have the Giants going up against who would they wind up against? It's right now. It's in that division. I
49ers?
guess the 49ers. And that would be the tough game. That would really be a tough game there. But you got a rookie quarterback going up against a halfway decent defense. I think that the Giants defense does show up sometimes. Didn't show up against the Eagles, but they do have a halfway decent defense. And you're going up against a rookie quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks do not seem to do well in the playoffs. So there you could possibly have all 4 NFC East teams in the division round. That would be amazing to see. Amazing to see.
The first time ever, really. That'd be good.
Right, yeah, because it can't happen. It hasn't been able to happen before because there's not been 7 playoff teams.
Wait, you're discounting Seattle and the Lions and
You're right. I am discounting them. I think that the Lions made a big stride, but they got to win 2 of 3 games, and out of all the schedules, they probably have the hardest of the 3. Seattle, I think, is on the decline right now.
And don't forget the X factor, Aaron Rodgers. If they can run the table, they could sneak into the playoffs, and no one's going to want to play Green Bay.
Their defense is bad, though.
Anybody wants to play Green Bay. Everybody wants to play Green Bay, Jack. They all want to play Green Bay.
I tell you, watching Rodgers play the other day was horrible. He threw that one pick. I was like, where is he throwing it to? Like, it was like 10 yards beyond the receiver. And I'm like, all right, was it the receiver that ran a bad route, or was it just that bad of a throw? And I think it was that bad of a throw. I mean, I think it had more to do with Rodgers than it did with the receiver. And it was just like, I'm like, what is he doing? It's like, I don't think he cares.
He seemed like he's off a little bit. He definitely seemed like he's not 100% into the game, for sure. I mean, even down there inside the 5-yard line, he probably throwing that quick ball. And the receiver didn't read the audible, but he still threw the ball behind the guy. It wasn't catchable. So you see stuff that he normally don't do,
I think it came back to haunt him, like he didn't do his work really in the off season. What worked for him his whole career didn't work for him this year. Like, Aaron Rodgers is so great, he could turn a switch on and off. And it didn't happen this year. I think next season you're going to see Aaron Rodgers. He's going to connect in the off season, everyone, and buy in from an early date.
Well, I think he's doing too much of that ayahuasca. That he's going down and doing that funny stuff down in Costa Rica, with whatever girl he's seeing at the moment. Yeah, I think he needs to get off of the funny stuff.
Yeah, I do too, because the way he's playing certainly is funny to me. So let's get into some of the games, guys. Let's start off with, I was talking about the Giants having to get in, and one of the teams that has to lose is Seattle. Oh, here's Keith. So we'll put off the games for a second while we bring in TGI Sports Talk host Keith Engle. Let's bring him aboard, guys.
Oh, hello, guys. Merry Christmas to all.
Keith?
Hey, Keith.
Happy holidays, whatever it is you like to celebrate.
Yes. It's Christmas for me and whatever for everybody else. So they a lot of holidays going on right now. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all of them.
I'm celebrating them all. It makes it easy.
There you go.
I wanted to celebrate a Jet victory, and I didn't get that. So
yes.
Well,
hey, I'm over here in Vegas, so I'll be over here for 3 weeks.
Oh man, 3 weeks in Vegas. Are the Raiders playing during that time? You catching a game there, Byron?
I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of maybe go to one of the games. My family's view. My daughter moved here 3 years ago, so
cool.
Over here doing a lot of.
Well, they're playing at Pittsburgh this weekend.
Yeah, they're playing Pittsburgh tomorrow. Yeah.
So Keith, we all had our swing at it. Let me give you your swing at it. Last night's game. Zach Wilson, of course, Zach Wilson. I said it right this time. I said it last time. Zach Wilson played awful. The Jets defense I thought they played well. And it looks like the Jags quarterback, that he looks like he's coming around anyway. Yeah, he's running with the ball well. He's making good decisions. Had that one bad fumble.
He needs to take better care of football. His biggest thing is taking better care of football, and that'll come, I think. He's played great the last, 10 games or whatever. He's 14-1 quarterback or touchdowns to interceptions. And last night, listen, not great conditions, and he played well enough to get his team a victory. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And Zach Wilson is just lost.
Yeah. We were commenting either, he's got to leave New York, go to a different team, become a backup somewhere, maybe. But he's sure having a lot of problems. And those Jet fans are just booing him out of the stadium every time he makes a bad play, Keith.
Yeah, once you lose the fans, and who knows how much of the team he's lost between what he's been around. I made a comment a couple of weeks ago when Jim was on about them not playing for him, and I didn't mean they wouldn't go out there and try, but I think when the going gets tough, that they'd rather be behind somebody else than Zach Wilson, and I think that's kind of obvious as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And again, guys like Byron and Jim can speak more to that than I would. You're obviously going to go out and give your best, but somewhere down deep, you want to play behind somebody else other than the guy you're playing behind. It can't be good.
Yeah, I would say you're right there.
He just don't have respect of his teammates, and it's unfortunate that he had to go through that as a second-year player, a third-year player, whatever.
And can he win it back though, Byron? I mean, having been in those locker rooms, can a guy do what he did and lose the type of respect, especially on the defensive side of the football, which he threw them all under the bus basically? Can he?
I don't think it means anything within the locker room what he said the interview. I don't think it bothers.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask Byron.
I think it's his play on the field now that has him exasperated. They're not moving the ball, they're not scoring, they've lost 4 in a row. I don't think one remark in the locker room like that bothers the guys anymore. That's our perception from the outside. I mean, he's just playing lousy, and you were right, Keith, a couple of weeks ago. I said I thought he was going to be a good quarterback in the league, to give him time. And he didn't play poorly against the Lions. He was passable against the Lions. He was dreadful last night. I don't think New York has the patience for him. The fan base doesn't have the patience. The coaching staff won't. He's got to go elsewhere because he's just not going to get a chance to play enough to develop here.
Hard place to play. Not everybody's built to play in New York City, especially at quarterback or the high visibility positions, right?
I don't think it's Zach Wilson himself that's intimidated by New York. I feel it's the coaching staff that would be more intimidated. They hear the boos. They read what's in the media. They hear what's in the media. And they feel the pressure maybe more than he does. That's why Robert Salah made him inactive. That's why Robert Salah took him out halftime. If this was Trevor Lawrence of Jacksonville playing that way, they would have stood with him longer.
Well, Byron,
one of the things about playing in New York, Bill Parcells used to always say, do not read the media. Do not talk to the media.
Yeah.
There's certain things you don't do. So I think Zach Wilson don't quite understand that role yet.
Yeah.
Well, Byron, is it really all Zach Wilson's fault, though? I mean, you're playing in New York. The coaching staff is brand new. They're trying to put something together. It's not
the
working
second
right
year,
now.
the coaching staff.
Well, whatever. I mean, that's pretty much brand new, Jack, right? So, I mean, he's trying to change the culture. The players it look like they're buying into it. But, I mean, it's not all Zach Wilson's fault that they're losing right now. I mean,
no, it's not. It's mainly everybody got to be on the same page, but certain things got to stick together. I mean, even the fans, when the fans start booing you, that's an indication right there that you done lost your effectiveness while you're there. But yet, I think too, it's just you just got to get it right. If you don't hardly have too many chances in New York. So I just think he done lost all his chances. I mean, his teammates not supporting him. And that's one of the biggest factors that you need in New York.
There's a face to every winning team and there's a face to every losing team. And a lot of times it's the quarterback, for good or, right or wrong. And he's the face of this team right now and what they're going through.
Yep, exactly.
Hey, Keith, some Patriots news we'll go over with you here. Of course, the biggest news is probably your defensive end from the past, Willie McGinnis, getting arrested with assault with a deadly weapon. It was more than one person involved in this. It looks like it happened in a nightclub. It might have been self-defense. But this is what happens with. I was talking to Byron. This is what young guys do, right? They go crazy. Not an older professional who's played football, has had a job as an NFL analyst. I mean, this is something the young kid does, Keith.
I agree. I mean, listen, there's not a lot of things that shock me when I read them in the paper in the police blotter for sports athletes today. But this one surprised me. Willie McGinnis always struck me as a stand-up guy and a leader on a team, and not a guy who was out getting in trouble all the time, even when he was young, as you said. And at this point in his life, I don't know all the details. I don't know if any of us know all the details, but if you're threatening somebody with a deadly weapon, things can't be going really well in your life right now. So I hope whatever's going on, he gets himself some help. And again, this one shocked me. There's a lot that most of them don't. This one shocked me. I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah.
We don't really know the whole story yet.
We don't.
Let's reserve judgment.
But there aren't a lot of situations I get myself in, good or bad, where I'm going to threaten somebody with a deadly weapon. I can say that.
But when you're in the public eye and you're on the NFL Network and they see you all the time, certain things you want to try to stay away from, nightclubs and going to places like that. You're just a target.
Yeah, I agree. You got to be smarter what you're surrounding yourself with, right? So
right, and I mean, the man doesn't have to go to nightclubs. I mean, he can.
Guys, Matt, this is Willie McGinnis. He's not a famous person. I mean, it's not Tom Brady that everyone knows.
People know Willie McGinnis, though. I mean,
I would recognize Willie McGinnis if he was sitting next to me on the bus.
Well, he's a broadcaster, Jack. I mean, he's got attention nationwide. I mean, unless you don't follow sports, then you wouldn't know Willie McGinnis. But if you do, you would. I would think. So I don't know.
I would agree.
I just think it's a crazy situation. And speaking of crazy,
but let me say this though. But when you say if somebody hear your name and then they Google your name, immediately stuff pop up on the social media. So that's the new thing here in this society. People they Google stuff.
I agree with that too. I mean, it's right there at your fingertips now, like it wasn't before. So talking about crazy, Keith, I know we've talked about this. Maybe too much. It's been shown on TV all the time. It's got to be the last play of the game for the Patriots.
I missed it. What happened? I missed it.
Yeah, I bet you wish you did. I bet you wish it never happened. What surprised me, and I've said this before, Belichick normally runs a tight ship. He's a disciplined guy, looks at all the things, every situation. And the players seem to go rogue on him and just did something they should never have done.
Yeah, again, I saw a lot of the groups the anti-Patriot groups and the haters were talking about Belichick and the coaching staff and how do you make a call like that? Well, they didn't call this. This was not the plan, not in a tie game, and the players just went off on their own. And listen, it's bad enough that Stevenson did what he did, right? That was bad enough. He should have just fallen down. Maybe they should have taken a knee in the first place and just gone to overtime. I don't know. But they tried to get something to happen, and he makes the first mistake. But Jacoby Myers is a veteran, and what he thought could have come throwing the ball 30 yards backwards to your quarterback. What was he going to do with it once he got it? Nothing. So it does come down to the coaching staff because somebody's got to get in these guys' ears and say, don't do anything stupid. This is a tie game. We're going to overtime. Right. And yes, I will blame the coaching staff for this faux pas. The players ultimately are at fault, especially Jacoby Myers, and maybe Mac Jones. I would have taken a tripping penalty there or something. I'd done anything I had to do to get that guy down.
Did I say something?
Now that play may have cost them a playoff spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely did. And the Patriot fans, and they need to shut up too, because, they all go back to the touchdown that I thought the guy was out of bounds, but it doesn't matter. You don't let bad calls beat you. At the end of the day, you should have been going to overtime with a chance to win.
Right,
that play didn't have to beat you. And I never have blamed bad calls on a loss, because don't put yourself in a position to get beat that way.
Well, Jack has said something, he's talked about a lot, and I'm starting to agree with him a lot. you got to know when to call a timeout. I mean, everything's going crazy. You're rushing down the field. You're trying to get the ball, whatever you're going to do there. You're just going nuts. You got to call a timeout, get the team relaxed, for the next play or go to overtime and you discuss it. You don't just let the players go crazy. And Jack's brought it up a couple times. Maybe they should have a person in charge of time management to call timeouts or something, because the coach is just oversaturated with things to do.
Yeah, they don't have guys that call timeouts, but most teams have guys that help them with that clock management. A lot of teams do. I shouldn't say all of them, but a lot of teams do, to remind coaches of what the situation is, because they got a lot going on. But yeah, you got to be aware of what's going on. And I'm okay with the Patriots trying to get into field goal position there. I don't have a problem with that at all. But the players have to know you can't turn the ball over, number one, and you certainly can't do stupid stuff like they did Sunday ever. And as Pag said, it very well has cost them a playoff win, because 2 out of 3 at least to finish the season to have any shot, and maybe you need all 3, and that's a tall order.
Byron,
Bill Belichick did say they practice this all the time, and so like to me, these players ought to be, you got to know the down situation, and you got to know when to secure the ball.
You practice it when you're behind, right? For when you're behind, not when you're tied.
But Byron, I have a theory that the players, they watch a lot of these games, when they can, and they've seen the lateral play a lot of times, other teams trying it, and you never see it return the other way for a touchdown. So instinctively, that's not on your mind that you're going to get hurt. You're thinking of just advancing the ball. It doesn't enter your mind at all that the other team could actually return your lateral for a touchdown.
Absolutely, it doesn't never enter your mind, but you should know the situation. You go into overtime. Everybody want to go have a overtime, go into the overtime situation. I mean, you're a player. You don't understand that. Come on, yes, just nail the ball down.
Byron, is this because their team is so young too? I mean, they're just. There's probably not leaders on the team. There's a lot, they're just unorganized. I mean, is that part of it too? Is it the locker room and the leaders?
That's part of it, but your coaches, even your position coach should be done to prepare you to know the down situation and also what to do. But fantasy football, some of these inexperienced coaches have really cost the game as well. So I think it's a combination of all of that as well. So
yeah. Well,
good point.
I mean, I think that play's going down to infamy right along with the
definitely. It's one of the worst plays in NFL history. I mean, good. The only thing that could make this worse would happen in a playoff game. I mean,
that is just something.
I wasn't even mad. I didn't even get mad until about Tuesday, because I couldn't convince myself it actually happened.
Yeah. Something you never see.
Yes. So let's take a look at Saturday and Sunday's games, guys. You got Atlanta at Baltimore. Baltimore still has a shot at making the playoffs. Let's start it off with Pags. Pags, kind of talks about Atlanta now and then. What do you think is going to happen there, Pags?
I think that Atlanta's done. They finally benched Mariota, which means that they're throwing in the white towel, even though they still have a chance to win that division and make the playoffs that way. I think I saw a stat that said 27 and 32 teams are still eligible to make the playoffs. You notice that all NFC South teams are still in the playoff hunt, although they're really not in the playoff hunt. They just could all possibly win the division because they all stink so bad. So I think that that Baltimore has like a 99% chance of making the playoffs. That there's like one specific situation that occur for them to be knocked out of the playoffs, but I think they win it this week, and then they're in, and they can just get themselves healthy.
Well,
I think that Burrows wins that division.
Mention Atlanta benching Mariota. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, he's their starter now. And you talk about landing places for Zach Wilson. A situation like that would be great. Be given an opportunity. They might have some patience. somewhere like that. He was more
See,
touted.
I don't know if that's the right answer there because this draft is a very quarterback rich draft. And I don't think you want to take on a problem. I think you take on a problem if you have a later pick. You take on a project that you may want to try to bring in competition for your existing quarterback. I think that if you have an early draft pick, and when I say early, the top 10 draft pick, I think you got to start your own problems. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you draft a new quarterback because you don't want anybody's damaged goods because whatever bad habits that they've learned with another team, they're bringing it onto your team. So if somebody was a cancer somewhere else, do you want to bring that into your locker room? I don't know that that's the case. So if I was the GM of Atlanta, if he gave me the week, I would not bring in Zach Wilson. I would go after a quarterback with that first pick.
And to keep,
Keith?
let's say the Patriots are eliminated by the last game of the season. They're not going to make the playoffs. Do you start Matt Sky Zappi, give him a game to see what he could do?
It's
Like
quite
Mac Jones.
it's quite possible he'll do that. I mean, in other years that wouldn't be a consideration, but this year it might. I mean, Mac's taken a step back along with that whole offense, and they very they could. I don't think they'd be eliminated if they lost this week. So I doubt you'd see him until week 18, but it's possible.
And what would be the point of that then? Like when you have for the better part of saying it's just an exhibition game. When I'm not going to start my normal starter now, I'm going to start the backup because I think he may give us a better chance to win. But it's an exhibition game at that point. Everybody's already packed up and ready to golf course. What would it make any? Does it make any sense?
It might depend. That game could mean something to Buffalo. I mean, it could mean home field advantage for Buffalo. So maybe they don't. Maybe they do what they think they got to do to beat Buffalo. I think they will try to win the game. So I don't know. It would be an exhibition game. It could be because it may mean nothing, but it still might mean a lot to the Bills. That last game.
I was gonna bring up the game Cincinnati at New England. Keith, if things it's getting harder for the Patriots, and it doesn't look really good for them. And I'm glad we had our Zappy word of the day again. That always makes me smile. But what did New England have to do to beat these? I mean, Burrows and the Cincinnati Bengals are on fire right now. And the last game, New England looked terrible, Keith. So what did New England have to do to turn this around?
Well, there's a lot of things. Usually what Belichick wants to do is take away their best weapon, but they got so many weapons. I mean, you take away Chase, Mixon's going to run the ball all over him, I'm afraid. And if they try to take Mixon away, then Burrow's just going to have a field day throwing the football. They're going to have a very, very tough time. They got to put pressure on Burrow, in my mind, and control the line of scrimmage, because if the Bengals have a weakness, and it's been better recently, is that still that offensive line, which gives the Patriots the best chance. At the end of the day, though, the Patriots can play as well as they want on defense. If they don't get that offense, the red zone offense in gear, and we're talking, 14 games into the season or whatever, we're still talking about their pathetic performance. They did score a touchdown in red zone last week, but still, it's been ridiculously bad. They've moved the ball up and down the field all year long, but they kick field goals too many times. So they need to put the ball in the end zone, and they need to really pressure Joe Burrow into making mistakes.
Tough game. Byron, we talked about this quite a bit already, but the Giants are going into Minnesota. The Giants, I think they got a good shot against Minnesota. Minnesota is a good team. They clinched their division. The Giants are fighting for their lives still. I think Saquon Barkley's going to have a good game. I think the Giants pressure that bad offensive line of the Minnesota Vikings and knock Kirk Cousins down a few times. And maybe they get out of there and they get a win in Minnesota, Byron.
Yeah, I think this is a good matchup for the Giants. Also fine-tune them for, maybe the playoff, they get the wild card. I think going against the Vikings, they have a lot of letdown when they're playing at home. I mean, the Cowboys win and just made them look really bad several weeks ago. And I just think the Giants now, if they can control the running game, go in and Saquon Barkley have a good game over 100 some yards rushing, I think the Giants would do well against the Vikings.
I think so too. I think they'll have a good game. Jack, your boy Aaron Rodgers at home. Pittsburgh's coming in to play him. Green Bay still has an outside chance to make the playoffs.
No,
Green Bay is playing down in Miami. We know all about that. It's on Christmas Day.
Oh, shoot. Las Vegas is playing
got tickets for that game. They
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yes,
and I'm happy I'm seeing my boy Aaron Rodgers play. It was my biggest fear that Jordan Love was going to be playing that game instead.
Right.
But Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing in
Still live.
Miami's going to be hard to beat. They're coming off a couple of losses in a row. They really need this game. And they lost tough games to Buffalo and the LA Chargers, good teams and highly competitive games. I think Miami, they're going to have somewhat of a breakout game, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah. If it was in Green Bay, would you give Green Bay a better shot against Miami?
Oh, they always have a better chance in Green Bay. Green Bay has gotten a bit better offensively as the year's gone along, but something's been off this year. They're going to have big decisions to make in the offseason, especially with Aaron Rodgers. They can't baby him. They can't worry about antagonizing him. You could worry before when he was a back-to-back MVP. Then you could worry with the year he's had. They've got to tell Aaron what they expect of him. And if you don't like it, you're in danger of actually being benched no matter how much we pay you. I mean, they've got to lay the law down to him. At first, give him a chance to come around, speak to him in a civil way, get his attitude. But if Rodgers is defiant against the Packer organization, they can't put up with it this year because you have to look at, he's not an iconic player at this point. Maybe he could turn it around. Maybe this was just an off year. Maybe he's just simply getting older.
It's possible. Of course, probably the game of the week, the Cowboys and the Eagles. Byron was a wide receiver for a lot of people don't realize this, but Byron Williams was a receiver for the Eagles for a short time. So he does have a nice place in his heart for the Eagles anyway. And of course, we got that Philly sports guy on. So my thoughts are this: Minshew's playing. They've got to run the ball. They got to control the line of scrimmage. Minshew's going to have to make a couple big plays to the big wide receivers. And as Pack says, the defense is going to probably end up winning the game. What do you think about that, Byron?
I just like the Eagles' chances because Dallas don't seem to play well at home because they get out of focus at home. But, I think it's going to be a big game for the Cowboys for sure. They got to win this game just to get some momentum going into the latter part of the season. But, the good thing about the NFC East is those teams play each other well. They always compete. I mean, sometimes you just got to flip a coin to see who's going to win those games because, they know each other real well.
Yeah. So I want to jump into the Major League Baseball news.
Matt, can I add one thing real quick? When it comes to prognosticating any of these games or picking apart, I think we all should use Mike McDaniel's strategy. And if you haven't seen the soundbite, please go look for it. They asked him last week when he went to Buffalo what the key to winning the cold weather games was, and he went on this little. He said the key to winning in cold weather games is scoring more points than the other team. And now that I think about it, it's the same in warm weather games. I guess in all games you just score more points than other.
Yeah,
he was serious, by the way. He was not making a joke.
And it's funny because he didn't come to me to ask me what I want from this game, and I really want from this Eagles Cowboys game is I don't want to be done cheaply, and I don't want it to be anything that hurts him, but I want Parsons to be on the ground one play, thinking about getting up for the next play. Like I want him to just sit there on the ground for a half a second and contemplate getting up for the next play. That's all I want. One play where Micah Parsons has that happen to him. Like I said, I don't want him hurt. I don't want it to be dirty, but I want a good, clean hit on him where he's got to be like on the ground and I get up for the next play. You know what I mean? Again, I ain't trying to get an injury. I don't want anybody hurt.
Yeah.
But I think I think they're going to give him that one play. They're going to get him wants. They talked about his quarterback. You know, it's like keep your name out of my mouth type thing situation. And I
Right.
think that the offensive line is going to put a little bullseye on his chest for a minute, and somebody's going to get him, and it's going to be like I said, I just want him. I wanted to show it to him and be on him for that 10 seconds where he's got like 4 seconds just doing the quick, and then I have to get up off the ground. That's what I want to see. One play.
All right. And since Jack left, he's been demoted down to the bottom row.
Yeah, the practice squad of this show. I mean, what happens if Michael Parsons sends a message to the Eagles? He lays out Minshew, and you have to go to the next quarterback.
You know, I had to ask who our third string quarterback is. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't even know who it is. Like, I don't know
Wow.
who's going to be the third string quarterback for this.
Well,
so
I heard you're available if they need an emergency quarterback, man.
I'm not. Had I known that Byron was going to be out in Vegas, I'd have just borrowed his house and gone down there.
But you know what? The good thing, remember last year, Pat, that we were down at the Texas Live. You was in Dallas last year.
Yep.
We had a great time. It was good.
It was a lot of fun. And like I said, if short the fact that it was Christmas Eve this year, I mean, it's just, I know everybody thinks that I got all this money in the world, that I can afford all this stuff, to fly my family down there and go to the game and all. It was a matter, and I thought about bringing the entire family down to go to this game and spending Christmas in Dallas. But when all is said and done, family is really more important, and I just ain't got the money.
I just got the message that your third string quarterback Pags is Ian Book.
Book from Notre Dame. Nice.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll see what happens.
That's the first time I've ever even heard that name.
Well, there might be a quarterback controversy if he wins that game. You never know.
Mac likes quarterback controversies.
Yeah, because he's got one. He's got one in New York.
Yes, I do. The Jets,
Daniel Jones, and anybody else who could.
I thought you were talking about you got to specify. I thought you were talking about the New York Jets, not the New York Giants. So let's get into MLB news a little bit. Of course, everybody knows Aaron Judge is back with the Yankees, and he's named the New York Yankee captain. And Keith, you cover the Yankees with us. You talk about them. I think that was told to him before he signed that contract. Jack doesn't really think it matters that much. I think it's a big deal to be one of the captains, and Lou Garrett was a captain. So, I mean, I think it's a big deal. So, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it is a big deal. Does it matter how he plays or whatnot? No, but I think it's a very prestigious thing. There's only been 16 captains in Yankee history. If I got my number right, I think I do. Thank you. And I think it's a big deal. And would they have said that to him in contract negotiations? I think absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons he needed to be back here, because he was the unnamed captain of this team already since Derek Jeter had left. And I think it's warranted. And I do think it's, but does it carry any importance to winning games? No, because he was the captain of the team without the title. Now he's got it, which means something in Yankee lore.
Keith, let's be honest about it. Jeter being named captain, it sounded good. It made Jeter look good. It made Jeter feel good. But what did it mean? It didn't mean anything. Jeter didn't really lead the team per se. They had a bunch of leaders on that team. It was just symbolic. It's nothing more than being symbolic. He was the face of the organization, just like Aaron Judge face
does.
Of the organization.
He led by example on the field, played the game the way that it was supposed to be played, just like Aaron Judge does, just like Thurman Munson did, just like Don Mattingly did. To me, there is something important in this position. Maybe in general, no, but I think the symbolism I think is important. I really do.
I do too, and especially being a captain of the greatest and franchise in sports history.
Yeah.
So, Pags, it's your division. The Mets are going crazy. They're signing everybody. So they got Korea in there.
I guess they must have been watching the show and listening to Jack say, "Hey, this guy can spend or can spend $1 billion on a team because he's going." I tell you, I'm thinking about what it is that they're doing, and I like it actually. I like the fact of what he's doing specifically. He is changing the way that these teams, these small market teams, are going to have to be able to operate. You're not going to be able to spend all this money in New York and not spend the money in Oakland. They're getting all this ridiculous money on this TV contract, and he's in essence spending that. He's spending that money. And you can't have Oakland out there who's got a $20 million payroll. The guy's worth $2 billion, and he's got a $20 million payroll. He's decided to pay everybody in that franchise more money. Everybody from the intern down at the bottom all the way up to the very top. If you're going to work for the New York Mets, we're going to make sure that you're happy working here. And it's never going to be money that's going to be the problem on why you're unhappy. So I kind of feel that I like that, which means that it's going to eventually have to trickle down to these other owners. They're going to wind up putting the minimum. Like for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got this gorgeous stadium out there, and since they built it, they've spent all that money to build it. Since they built it, they cut payroll down to the same thing with the A's. And I think the A's are the same situation. You ain't going to move to Vegas, so you better start spending your money in Oakland now and start getting up there, or you're going to lose your franchise. And I think that's going to be across the board, that these small market teams are going to have to spend more money because of what he's doing in New York, and I am one for it.
Yeah, I'm just sorry that the major league, the whole league has just gone crazy with spending money. The fans are going to suffer. They're going to have to pay more for tickets, for jerseys. They're going to have to pay more, for the packages. They're going to have to pay more for the TV. I mean, it's a shame that baseball has come to this, and I don't know how long this can keep going, guys. I really don't.
Baseball's going to have a serious problem in 7 years.
Yeah.
In 7 years, when these contracts come to fruition, they got a whole bunch of bad players who can't play baseball anymore and stuck with big contracts.
Yeah.
Mac, the Mets listed a good amount of regular season games where tickets start at $5. Okay, I mean, obviously bad seats.
Right.
But look, you go to the movies. How much does it cost to go to the movies now? About $15? You could go get a ticket for that at the ballpark. I mean, the problem is you go online, you have to pay all these fees that kind of match what the ticket is. And the food, they don't allow you, a lot of these stadiums, to bring in food or drink, and what they charge you for that is way overpriced.
Jack, I don't fault anybody for getting as much as they can. But when you gotta pay somebody $350 million, and when a player has to make $350 million, it's just gone totally out of whack. And I don't think it doesn't end until Pag says, until these contracts come up and now the players are no good. And it's just I don't understand it anymore. I used to understand baseball.
One of the problems, though, is when the owners have, at different points in history, have tried to take control of salaries and bring them down, then they get sued for collusion, and we got a whole new set of problems. So,
right,
you can't.
Byron, wouldn't you? Now, Byron, don't you wish you played? I know you played baseball before. Don't you wish you played baseball? I mean, my God.
If I was to listen to some of my coaches, I would have been playing baseball, stealing bases, because I was pretty fast, and that was one of the things they wanted me to do, and I didn't do it, and I should have wished I would have listened, because I might have been up there with Henderson for stealing bases.
Wow. You should have been a left-handed pitcher. You'd still be pitching today. You don't have to be any good if you're left-handed.
Very true.
Yeah, exactly. Man.
So we got one more item that just came over the wire this morning. Trevor Bauer is reinstated. A lot of people think he's a bad guy. He probably is, for what he did. And, he's been reinstated. He's still going to have to miss 50 games. Keith, what do you think? I mean, should they have reinstated him? Should he be pitching again? What are your thoughts?
No, my thoughts are similar to what they were with Deshaun Watson. This guy's a bad guy, did some bad, despicable things. And people who say, well, there's no criminal charges, it doesn't mean he didn't do anything wrong. And I don't think he'll be pitching for the Dodgers again. I don't know if he'll pitch for anybody. I'm sure he won't pitch for the Dodgers again. It's a matter of whether somebody wants to take a chance. And they're going to pay him a lot of money to do it as well, because he's got a pretty hefty contract. He's not a good guy. These teams have got to start to understand, along with all these other problems, right, with the size of contracts and whatnot, if you're going to turn off fans by bringing these type of guys into your organization, you're not going to be shown in a good light.
Keith, but Trevor Bauer's a troubled individual. I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but it gets to a point where a guy has maybe paid a price. He has lost a lot himself. He's lost many, many millions of dollars and time away from the game. I mean,
did he admit he did anything wrong?
What are we supposed to do? Not allow him to play Major League Baseball? Then he gets a job at a Home Depot or Burger King or whatever. Don't allow him to work there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have a job. If I was accused of these things, I wouldn't have a job. I can tell you that right now.
My question is like, because I had no idea who he even was, again, until I read the story last night. You know, and I'm like, all right, so now I got to hear what he did. And then the first thing that came to my mind, you know, which wasn't as bad, but could be in the same ballpark, was Marv Alberts. Remember when he had that whole situation and he was still announcing games and stuff like that? Very similar, different. Very similar, but different. You know, that
No, it wasn't that similar, Pags. Trevor Bauer, it was something, they had a physical altercation with a woman, and she accused him of choking him. He claimed it was rough sex. No criminal charges are pressed against him.
Because she went, the criminal charge pushed because she actually agreed to some of the consent of this. So I mean, literally,
some settlement. I don't know. It's ugly. Trevor Bauer's the same pitcher when he was with the Indians. Terry Francona came out to the mound to take him out of the game. He took the baseball and he threw it into the bleachers. He has problems. He's the Antonio Brown of baseball. You could basically say, in a certain sense, having erratic behavior.
Look at, to me, this is a pretty simple thing. If you put your hands on a woman, I don't want you in my life. I don't want you on my team. I don't want you anywhere associated with me. I said the same thing with the Yankees and Herman, who's not nearly the pitcher Bauer is. I didn't want him back. Yeah. There's no lower form of human being that puts a hand on a woman or a child. Sorry.
Byron, if somebody like that was in your locker room back in your day, what would probably happen to that individual?
Well, I just think it just brings bad vibes to the team, and you want to get upstanding citizens and good examples, in the community. So it wouldn't be good. I think you have a lot of friction here and friction there with what's going on with the locker room. The locker room is so important, and being able to support teammates is very important. So I just think it wouldn't be good. So it would be pretty bad.
Yeah, what do you think Barry Carson would say or do to that individual if he found out that happened?
Well, Harry Carson he point blank. I mean, he get up in your face and he let you know this is what we allow here in this locker room, and this is what this team is all about. Like Deshaun Watson coming to, it wouldn't have been a good situation from him either, because I just think you got to have, support from your teammates, and you just got to be, concerned about this, because it just deteriorates the team. It just it's not a good thing to have. And so when they bring a person in like this, it doesn't bring value to the team and the vision that you want for your ball club.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little boxing. Maybe we'll learn some boxing with Jack Hirsch here, the Hall of Fame boxing writer. I got some things I wanted to go over with him, and let's start with the fights, Jack. The best fight coming up here in January. Tank Davis versus Luis Garcia.
Yeah, for now, that's a tune-up for Tank, supposedly, and underline the word supposedly. He'll be fighting Ryan Garcia at the end of April in a big, big fight, 2 unbeaten lightweights at the top of their game. I'm skeptical whether that's going to come off or not. They haven't announced which TV network would air that fight. So now there are complications between Showtime, who's done a number of Tank Davis's fights, and the Zone. It gets a little muddy, at that point. But Tank Davis, he has that crossover appeal. He sold out the Barclays Center against Raleigh Romero. That's a shock. I mean, not too many, fighters could sell out a big arena, and Tank Davis did it. So he has a certain appeal. He's going down the Mayweather route as far as a certain popularity. Mayweather wasn't an exciting fighter, guys. I mean, he was really a boring fighter, basically would shut an opponent down. But he imaged himself in a certain way where the public took to him, and he was the most successful fighter as far as creating an image for himself, the most successful fight in history, you could say.
Jack, I want to go into a little deeper on what you talked about, making a fight. And a lot of people don't realize the friction and the problems it is to making the best fights. We're used to watching, George Foreman against Muhammad Ali, and they're the two best fighters in the world, and that's why they're fighting. And it's not like that anymore. I mean, you got the promotions that that won't work with each other. They won't make the good fights, and the fans suffer. So could you let us know a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many different promotional entities, and there are few major players. There's Top Rank, Bob Arum. There's Al Heyman, the Zone. There's Oscar De La Hoya, to a less extent with Golden Boy. There's Al Heyman out there with the PBC. And if they have a fighter on the contract and another promoter has a fight on the contract, it's hard for them to come to a meeting of the minds, because every promoter likes to put on his own show. He'd rather do that than have a co-promotion, because you keep all the profits. It's a lot simpler. That's why Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, the fight never took place. I mean, Errol Spence was promoted by Al Heyman, the PBC, who does business with Showtime, the Fox Network. Terence Crawford was with Bob Arum's Top Rank. He was fighting on ESPN. Crawford became a free agent, but he didn't want to sign over options for the next few fights to the PBC, to Al Heyman, because you could make more as a free agent, rather than be under contract. So they kept talking like they were going to make the fight. It looked like it could come off, but it never did, and I don't think it ever will. But Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, I think, is going to happen, because Usyk's management, so on, they're basically free, and they've done a lot of business with Bob Arum's Top Rank and Frank Warren, the co-promoters of Fury. So that's going to be a very makeable fight, I think.
Another thing I think people don't understand anymore is belts. I mean, we had at one time, you only had one, heavyweight champion in the world, and they broke off into different, to different belts. And now today, you have a belt for everything, Jack. And they're fake belts. And there's belts that are like, belts that you get, and then you can get another belt. It's so confusing to the fans today. They don't know who's got what belt or what fighter is fighting what fight. What can you explain a little bit about the belts?
It is so stupid. And the part that makes it even dumber is the public embraces it. Even parts of the media, even my buddy who I do glove fist with, Frank Laterzo, he gives these belts a lot of credibility. You know how silly it is? Let me compare it to football. When the Super Bowl ends, whoever the Super Bowl winner is, 1 week later, you get another football alliance. They decide to strip the Super Bowl champion of the Super Bowl title. And
Right.
Let's say the Kansas City Chiefs had gotten eliminated during the playoffs. They decide the Chiefs are going to play the Dallas Cowboys to see who the Super Bowl champion is. Imagine that, Pax. The Eagles win the Super Bowl, and a week later, they make a matchup between Kansas City and Dallas to see who the new NFL champion is, according to their sanctioning body. And people will buy into it. And imagine Dallas wins the game. Some people say Dallas is the world champions of football, along with the Eagles. It's stupid. It's idiotic. And people are buying into it all the time. Frank Laterzo, shame on him, my partner on Glove Fist. He keeps saying, he holds 3 belts. The other guy holds 1. There's reality in this belts.
Hey,
Okay,
Frank better
well,
learn how to buckle his own pants with a belt. You know what I mean? That's what he needs to worry about. I know that he loves hating on me, and he tried to say that he wants to see me in the ring. You know,
Well,
I know that he used to be a boxer, but you know,
I have
I got him by a
this
number of years.
this was my boxing question I wrote down here. What's up with this match? We were talking about
Yeah.
making matches. What's up with the Philly sports guy against Frank Laterzo? I want to see
Yeah.
that.
All I can say right now, it's in this, it's in discussions. And I think the Philly sports guy wants too much money right now. So he's going to have to go equal with Frank on the purse. No, it's all going to be for charity when we do it. It'll happen down the road, Keith. It's just to get the date and to get the place and to get the venue is a lot of work to be done. But we will have it off. You will see the Philly guy against Frank Laterzo, who has promised to wear a cowboy jersey when he fights. So
well, we have problems. Laterzo wants all the money to go to the charity of his choice. This is boxing. He wants none to go to Pax's charities. He wants none to go to Byron's. He wants it to the charities of his choice. You know, he has first refusal. Any charity he wants, he's putting it on there.
Right. And
Jim, what is he, about 120 years old right about now? I mean, the guy's ancient. It's like, I'm sure they have about stepping into the ring. That was why that Veterans Boxing Association never worked out, because there was only like one state that you could get the rules where, because I'll get arrested the moment I throw a punch at him, because he's, I'm like, hurting the elderly.
I'm pretty sure he just ran up the Rocky steps there in Philadelphia. He's in front of
He's a Philly, he's a Philly guy. That's the ironic thing. Laterzo is a Philly guy.
Who's a Philly hater? He's a Philly guy who's a Philly hater.
He doesn't like you, Pax.
Oh, he likes Pax. No, he likes, honestly, Jack. He does like Pax. He just does not like any of the teams.
He doesn't like the Phillies. He hates the Eagles, and he hates Ohio State.
And to let you guys know, we're working behind the scenes right now on another possible boxing matchup between a lighter weight division between Byron Williams and Jack Hirsch. That might go off too this year.
Well, I'm retired now. I mean, I'm retired.
How much money would it take for you to get back in the ring is what we got to ask you, Jack.
Okay. I mean, you could come up with some offers. I mean, I'll listen to the offers.
I tell you, you put them both in the ring and you give them them rock'em sock'em boxings.
No,
where it's just the guys going.
I know what's going to happen. No, I'm going to accept the offer, and Byron is going to pull out 3 days before the fight with some injury, and they're going to try to substitute Too Tall Jones for Byron.
That would be awesome.
Set up.
I'm a little concerned anyway, Jack, because that only leaves me Jim Jeffcoat. Not that I want to fight Byron either, but I'm
Jim Jeffcoat. Jim's only good in one sport outside of football. That's golf. That was his game. Right, Byron.
I'm excited about that matchup with Jack, though, because I was gonna tell Jack, I had to throw my flag footballs away because they said that he was a good flag football player. But back in the day in my neighborhood, I won the boxing gloves because I beat everybody on my block. So wow. I don't think he can stand. I don't think he can stand in the ring with me though.
Jack, you're in trouble now. Holy cow! But money does talk, Byron. So we'll see what happens.
Money always talks. I mean, you put the money down.
I think Jack will go in and face you, Byron. He'll run around the ring, a couple things, and then he'll get tired and he'll jump out of the ring, and we'll have to disqualify him.
I'm not a football player. I was conditioned in boxing and marathon running. I don't get tired like a football player. He runs 100 yards on an interception, and they collapse in the end zone.
All right. So we finish off the show with a little fun, not too professional, but a little fun, and we'll see you tomorrow, Saturday. I think everyone's going to be here tomorrow, right, Keith? Pags?
I'll be in. Yeah, I'll be in.
Okay. Robert already said he'll be in. Of course, Jim will be here. And we'll do our Sunday football show on Saturday. And it should be a lot of fun, folks. It's my favorite show
around a little longer, too. I won't be Robert Complex tomorrow. I can stick around with Robert for a little bit.
All right. Hopefully Robert will stick around. I don't know what will happen. He may have he might have some kind of conflict.
No church on Saturday.
Well,
So,
yeah.
well, they have
that's
church on
true.
Saturday. Don't get me wrong. There's church every day of the week, but
Yeah, yes, there is. So, and Byron could have told you that. So, folks, have a great day. Enjoy the games tonight. And of course, as always, I hope your team wins. Have a great day, folks. And
Okay.